channel. We will have Q&A session after the presentation, so please post your questions in the chat box with prefix Q. You will be able to unmute yourself as well during Q&A, so we can go through questions later. And also we'll keep an eye on the questions during the presentation, so Kate might be able to answer at the time. After the event, we will send you a participant feedback survey, so please complete that. This is for the continuous improvement, and obviously we want to hear what you need and what are your requirements. So thank you for joining us today again. I will hand over to Kate and Jude.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Kate, and I'll just very briefly explain who we are and what we're not, more importantly. So I'm Kate Blakemore, the founder and CEO of the charity Motherwell Cheshire. So we're a women and girls mental health charity working with girls 13 up to no upper age, really. And we offer counselling, peer support, wellbeing activities, so reading group and things like that, with the main aim of improving mental health. Part of this workshop that we're doing tonight is a project of ours called Flourish Her, which is a project I developed during COVID, really, to help workplaces support the mental health and wellbeing of their employers, but with the main topic of women's issues, so menopause, miscarriage, endometriosis approach, really. So I'll just let Jude introduce herself and then we'll move on to the topic.
All right, thanks, Kate. I'm Jude. I'm a counsellor at Motherwell. I specialise in infant loss and look after our Cherry Blossom service, and I run peer support groups.
Okay, so just to explain, I'm also a counsellor, and way before menopause was actually a topic, and excuse the pun, but it really is a hot topic now, isn't it? It's on the news, and we've seen documentaries. But we were seeing probably 2019 a lot of women of menopausal age coming to us with high anxiety, and so we didn't really have funding to offer counselling at that time, but we were able to through different means, really. And that then got me thinking of, you know, what else we could do. And a lot of it was, as what's still coming out now, it was the lack of understanding of menopause, and we still have a lot to learn in every sense of it, really, in terms of education with medics and people being misdiagnosed. So we'll look at that more throughout the presentation. This presentation is more of an aid. I'm not going to go through every one because I just want to tailor it to the workplaces as we discussed at the start. Is there going to be a delay in your... Okay, so what we should hopefully look at throughout today, what is the menopause? We're not medics, to point that out, but you know, we will address what the menopause is, going by the NHS guidelines. The effects it can cause, and we'll link that to work. We'll look at some of the symptoms, how people can support others that are going through the menopause, and I think that's really key for when we're looking at it in the workplace. What help is out there, and we'll touch very briefly on natural remedies. We might not get to that, but it'll be on this handout should you need it as well. Okay, so one of the big researches coming out, particularly in the workplace, is that menopause has probably been laughed off a lot, not actually taken seriously. I always liken it to if a 13, 14-year-old girl said they were going through puberty, you certainly wouldn't laugh at that. You know, we always go through a supportive manner in that. Yet for many years, we've just laughed about the menopause. And then I think a lot of females will go along with that as well, you know, because it's the easier thing to do.
It's almost derogatory, isn't it?
Yeah,
jokes that are made.
Just let me draw me blanks because I feel like the sun's on me. And what research is showing straight away is that in the workplace, the best thing to do is have healthy, understanding conversations about the menopause. And obviously it's great that so many are on this evening to try and understand that a bit more. But yeah, these are the type of things that we'll say. Oh, you're going through the change. Oh, you're feeling hot. I had a CEO come to me of a huge company, and she'd been massively undermined in the boardroom because they were saying, is she in the right frame of mind to make that decision? And this, as I say, this was probably about 2017-18, so not talking about the menopause like we're talking now. And she did in the end resign from that post. She did go on to be a leader somewhere else, but she just felt that she couldn't be taken seriously in the boardroom because of her age and the comments being said.
And I think there's something about hot flush as well. We use that so often, and it sounds like, you know, that, oh, I'm having a hot flush. It sounds like I just need to take my cardigan off and then I'll be absolutely fine. And it really isn't. You know, it can make you feel really, really poorly, quite a prolonged period of time. But that's something else is left of, oh, I'm having a hot flush. Right, let me take that layer of clothing off. A bit more than that.
Sorry, I've lost my arrow. Okay, so this is what the NHS said. The menopause is when women stop having periods and no longer able to get pregnant naturally. It's a natural part of aging that usually, and I say that usually because I think I've added that in now, between 45 and 55. I mean, I've just finished working with somebody in her 30s that's just been through the menopause from other illnesses as well. So we do have to realise that it can be a lot younger, but this is the usual age that it goes through. So that is what it is. But also we know that perimenopause is still massively misunderstood, and that can be the start of the menopause process, but still having periods. And that can be for many years as well, causing anxiety, and we will look at the list of it as well. So very briefly, medical term, the ovaries stop producing eggs, and ovaries also produce the hormone estrogen. When the menopause stops, your levels fall and effects from the menopause can take place. Also with this as well, that you know, what we see, mainly because we are counsellors, but this is something really, and I know this has really affected me, it's the fact that the choice is taken away from you to continue to have children, and that can be really upsetting as well from an emotional level. So you've got your physical things going on in your body, you know, everything trying to get to a different norm, if you like, but there is that is the end possibly if you're having any more children, and that can be for people younger particularly, but even when it's older, you know, it might be that you don't want, but there's no choice there. You know, and there is that side of it, something
that's gone, isn't it? You've lost something.
So as we've just mentioned, before the menopause, the body can start adjusting. Periods may become irregular and more heavy, and this stage is called the perimenopause. And I don't want to be vulgar or anything, but that bleeding can be a big issue in the workplace. Something that we're introducing, Jude doesn't know this yet, but I've just finalised it. And I have got copies if anyone wants to send out. Your workplaces may have it, but we're introducing a menstrual and menopause policy in the workplace as well to offer so many days where you can perhaps work from home instead, or if you really can't come in, then those days aren't classed as sick, they are those days. And without getting into too much detail, I know sometimes them days would have really benefit me not being conscious of going into work as well. So, you know, there is the real physical signs of that sometimes as well. So there isn't many workplaces that have this policy, but I'm big on, if I'm doing this, we're only a small charity, but we absolutely need to be leading the way. And we are all women of a complete variety of age now, aren't we, Jude? So I took it to our board of trustees and said I would really like to implement this, and they agreed. But they're the things that give women protection in the workplace, that actually that is that culture that you're driving out straight away, that you're understanding that these issues can impact you, but we're here to support you on an emotional and physical level as well. So just some information. Professionals say that when you've not had a period for a full 12 months, you have reached menopause. That differs from GPs very much. You know, we're hearing so many different stories of different GPs. There is a 10-year strategy. I keep going on about this because it's so informative. I can send this to you as well, Liz, to perhaps send out. It's a 10-year women and girls health strategy that the government released in July, and it's they're looking more at getting professionals trained to a high level to address the menopause. And I think for that to be in a strategy shows where they recognise where they're at, doesn't it? That they need to upskill their NHS professionals, because menopause is just not the few and far between of what advice people are sharing as well. Hormones, especially for women, have a great impact at every stage. And that's why I say, you know, in puberty, you wouldn't laugh at a 14-year-old if she was a bit more emotional or got stomach cramps. Yet there's something so different at the other end of the spectrum, and that culture needs to change quickly and quite dramatically, really, as well.
Yeah, but it's just dismissive, isn't it?
Really, really is. What we always say as well when we do this is, usually at this time of the life, there's lots of other things going on. You know, statistics show that usually women between 40 and 50 could be full-time carers for their own parents, or they could have, you know, other issues with their own children. Unfortunately, I know a lot of people, when the children have left, their relationship breaks down as well. So there's usually a lot of other things going on of a woman between these ages that can impact, you know, everything else that's going on for them. On Wednesday next week, we're doing a similar one of this, solely on empty nest. So Barclays Bank have asked us to do you know, things around empty nest, because that we've done a menopause workshop, but actually when they discussed it afterwards, what we'd mentioned about empty nest had really resonated with a lot of the women, so they wanted to explore that more, because that was actually impacting their mental health greatly, more than some of the menopause symptoms was as well. So that's something to really be aware of, what else is going on in your employee's life at that time, and if they've got hormones to deal with as well, it can be more impactful. So not to scare, I always say, and this is not even an exhausted list, but these are some of the things that might be going on. Nobody, well, maybe some have it all, but you know, this is an indication of some of it. The big one that I wanted to pick up for workplaces, a lot of women have had to request new uniform and then questioned why. And that was one of the things that a lot of women have fed back to us. They just didn't want to put the why, because actually, if they're requesting a new uniform, just get them a new uniform, you know, because they didn't want to explain it, because they'd already felt they were overweight and things like that. So uniform was a big one. As Jude said, they're not just about hot flushes, it's about being absolutely boiling at times, and the right kind of uniform. You know, and what they can or are made to wear sometimes is just not fit for purpose.
And I think as well, even like you're saying, yeah, one person may not have all of these things on the list, but even to have a few of those, you know, some bladder incontinence or some changes with your hair or changes with your skin, how much that can affect your confidence.
Yeah, it all plays into it, doesn't it? Definitely.
Yeah.
I know we do a lot of work with Barclays Bank, and the branch staff, you know, they tend to have the neckerchiefs on, and you know, they look really smart, but they, you know, they've said they hate them when they're really having a bad day and they are roasting. To have to wear them kind of scarves is just not good. You know, some of these bleeding gums, bladder incontinence, but the big one, which can be really impact people, you know, the panic attacks.
Yeah,
I went with my friend last week, and she just horrendous with panic attacks at the moment. Never experienced them before. Her fellow is from Peru, so they're always on flights to Peru. And she went on holiday recently and just couldn't, she just said she was an absolute mess, and it just all of a sudden come over these panic attacks. But now it's formed a pattern of being, so she's really struggling with them. But that's really, you know, if you're in the workplace and having panic attacks, and for those of you that have not had a panic attack, they're so scary. You know, it's like you are fearing for your life in those moments, because you think you know, a lot of people will think they're having a heart attack as well.
Yeah, and that can be difficult as well if you're in a customer facing role and you can feel that panic attack.
Yeah, and I think there is that, isn't it? You know, we work with other people's emotion, and sometimes we have to be in tune with ourselves. You know, I'm guessing a lot of the decisions you make as a team here are decisions that you have to make, and if you're starting to go through some areas of where you doubt about yourself, that will impact your decision making as well. But what is really important is it's not an indication of how good you are at your job. You know, because that's the culture we've got to get out of, really. Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to keep moving everybody over on my screen because I keep going over. So how can you help? How can employer help? Oh, have I gone?
You've gone.
Pressed it too many times. Yeah. So I've done this talk in many things, and for me, it is about the culture. I did it in one for mental health. It wasn't on this topic, beg your pardon. It was on mental health for Mental Health Week. I absolutely got shot down because it was clear they just wanted to tick a box. They had not created the right culture. So it's really important to create the culture. So as I said, consider having a menopause or menstrual and menopause policy in place. I mean, if you see the strategy, that's what they're working towards anyway. One of the big things that's come into the strategy, which is obviously helping us as a charity because we're here now, but is conversations, healthy, positive conversations about the menopause. So a lot of women are saying they would rather ring in with a headache, an upset stomach, than say, I'm currently having a bad day, I'm going through the menopause. Or a lot of women would just not go into work and make, you know, just say anything that they can. Or worst case scenario, and this is why this policy has come out nationally, well, guidance and strategy, is because women are leaving work.
But I'm thinking about this support and your previous slide, you know, with all the different the different things, changes that can happen to you. If you knew somebody that had 3 or 4 of those symptoms, how sympathetic would you be? That was an illness. How sympathetic would you be to them? Do they need anything? Can you help? But it's almost like when you say menopause, it's like, oh, right, yeah. Well, all women go through that. Yeah, just get on with it. Yeah.
And I think what's thing, and I would love to do this with any employers. I'm doing it currently with the college, and we're looking at doing it with the Chamber of Commerce, and we're doing it ourselves as a charity, is create a menopause cafe in your workplace. That they are found to really help. We've had 2 really successful menopause cafes. I'm surprised our crew 1 how well that took off. We're having 2 now in crew 1 day and 1 in night. But we're going in, we'll have 9 in a couple of weeks. But that's been proven to be a really good way in the workplace as well, to have like a menopause cafe. You can call it what you want, in, you know, a menopause network. But that's creating the culture then, isn't it? Is allowing people to have that time to use the space and shared experience. We sign up to the official Menopause Cafe. There is an actual charity called the Menopause Cafe, and we work under their guidance. And what's great about that is it's open to all. So if a man wanted to come, because, you know, what's great about that is men have got people in their teams, they've got people in their lives that one day or currently are going through the menopause. It's for the greater good of everybody, you know, when things like that are implemented in the workplace as well. So they're a very simple concept, and it is, you know, it's all about peer support, and there's a lot of people learning different things, because as I say, there's different people going to different GPs and different pharmacies, and we know there's been a shortage of HRT and things like that, so that they're gaining inner strength from each other. So I think that would be a great start in the workplace. and obviously to have some kind of policies to back it up. What are my rights in that? Line managers, I personally, I would make more large corporations make their line managers go to it. If we do menopause in the workplace, generally it'll be the women that are perhaps going through it, but half of the problem is that their line managers have a lack of understanding or a lack of compassion. So, you know, if you can implement that as well, that everybody needs to understand. The 10-year strategy that's laid out from the government as well is also going to include at primary school level that the menopause is spoken about like puberty as well. I can't even remember the menopause being brought up in any of my childhood, even in teens really, but they know, and it has to be addressed. Do you remember when we'd get taken out, the girls would have one talk, the boys would have another, and it was a theme all the way through that every topic like this is spoken to from a young level at all genders as well.
I just remember it spoken about maybe in a derogatory way of, oh, she's going through the change. Oh, well, you know, maybe what she's saying isn't valid. We can just be really dismissive.
Yeah. So provide flexible working where possible. There's obviously a big agenda for more flexible working to help support mums. But again, you know, if it does, and I guess this is, COVID has thrown us into some of these situations a lot quicker than perhaps what we needed to be, because now there is the option of home working far more than what was, you know, in 2019. But flexible working is key for many reasons, as I say, for mums, for people perhaps who are suffering from bad mental health that day. The whole chaos of an office can be too much. So it's the same for menopause as well. As I've already said, make it easy for uniform to be ordered. A big one is just simply ask, what support can you offer? A lot of people will shy away from that, particularly line managers. But this is where I think if you have a policy and maybe some procedures that underpin it, you've got something that can give you the governance of offering that support as well, rather than floundering and you're doing it for one but a different line manager's doing it for others. If a HR in your workplace is giving you that guidance, then you've got that support of what you can offer. You know, like I say, ours is going to be that there's 12 days, I think it was, a year that they can have off if it's bad periods or menopause or anything like that. A very, very simple one, but we did for one local authority, because their line manager did not like fans on the desk because she said it made the place look untidy, they weren't allowed to have fans. But that, you know, that's just so silly, because there was 3 women when we did the talk who were really struggling because this was an office that had no windows either. So provide water and fans where possible. And I'm sure with, you know, health executives on here, you'll be looking at things like that from perhaps a different angle than we would. But, you know, if you can provide them, then it's good to offer them.
I'm just laughing because I hog the one in our office on my desk, and I've got a portable one now.
But, you know, that's where it comes down to, doesn't it? That was a personal preference that line manager didn't like. He was a female manager, but she just didn't like him on the desk because it made untidy. But actually, that was making it very uncomfortable for key members of her team. So it can be sometimes just the little things that can make a difference. I think we discussed a lot about don't minimize what the woman's going through. But when I said at the start about creating the culture, it's that culture that needs to change. In the laughing and the mocking. You know, we've moved away, haven't we, from some of the inappropriate sexual comments, you know, and this is what we need to get into, that culture as well. What we'd say 20 years ago is certainly not acceptable now in the workplace. And the way we talk perhaps about women's issues needs to be very much a different way, and that's again where a policy would underpin what is acceptable and what's not. ask if you can help. So that's kind of like support, but maybe it's what I meant by that was more, how can you help now? What can I do for you now? Do we need to have 10 minutes? Do you want to come and talk about it? And that really links into any kind of perhaps mental health training as well, because you can know everything about menopause, but if you don't know how to respond for somebody that's perhaps upset or in distress, then that doesn't help either. So it is, a lot of it is how you can respond in those moments, and that person feeling listened to, and that's on any subject, isn't it? Not just the one we're talking about tonight as well. Employers could create a policy around menopause. We've definitely spoken about that. Another one that we're looking at, we've called the Menopause Champions in our charity, and it's going to be our menopause champions that facilitate our menopause cafes, and that's something that you could do as well. So, you know, a menopause champion, as an example, could organise more of these kind of talks in their workplace. It's World Menopause Day in November, I think. You know, so they'll be the kind of ones that would perhaps set up some kind of awareness days in the workplace for them. But champions of any type have proven to be really, really successful. You know, we have mental health first aiders now, but I would say that that's great. Just on a side note, another thing that I'm working with, even though we are a women's charity, is we are looking at, with 2 companies I said I'd support, setting up a men's network as well. So, you know, that they are probably very much needed at the moment, because men's mental health is on everybody's radar. But networks in big organisations really do work. And I know Barclays, they must have a network for absolutely everything. They have so many groups, it is unreal. But they are a massive company, as we know. But I know a lot of people that work in Barclays as well, and they prove, because it's shared experiences, isn't it? It's a safe place to be, and working with your networks, they can do a lot of good for many reasons. Mm-hmm. So I'm just checking the chat. 18th of October is Menopause Day, so that might be for those of you that go away today. You know, we would provide some resources should you want to do that. I always think awareness days are good to start the conversations in different places, but the key to that afterwards is maintaining that as well. And we've spoke very much around challenging derogatory comments, offer the change of workplaces for temperature control. You know, where is this person working? Would it mean a different room that's more ventilated could absolutely change how they feel about going to work. A simple change like that, but really can make a difference. And these are sometimes not, people wouldn't dare ask for that. That needs to be perhaps offered to them.
I think feeling like you're in an environment where you can ask really alters how you feel.
Yeah.
About going into work, doesn't it? Whether you need to ask or not, just knowing that if you needed to, you could.
Yeah, and I think that and I know I keep banging on about it, but it's the culture, isn't it? It's the culture that filters through right from the top, and that's where policies and procedures help. Because if you've endeavoured to get that culture and give it time, like I keep saying, we're a mental health charity, we need to have a mental health and wellbeing policy. So that's also being signed off by the trustees that I put together as well. And then at the back of that, I've done a process of what support they can get and what support we will offer. You know, and my thing is, we're a grassroots charity with very, very limited funding, and yet we're endeavouring to do it for our team. You know, there's no excuses that big businesses can't do it. I've been doing these talks for years now, and what I find is normally the board is what will put lots of things in place. It's the line managers underneath that sometimes can block it. So an advice to just you as individuals is, if you have got them kind of policies in place, make sure you know what it says. You know, we do lots of talks to mums. I was at the Cheshire Fire the other day, working with 7 firefighters returning back into work. But it's key that they know what their rights are and what they can ask for and what support the workplace is going to offer. Because not very often we sit and read them, but actually a lot of workplaces do offer a lot of support, and I think that, you know, occupational health and things will write a lot more menopause support in going forward, particularly the bigger companies. Right, move over. Shall I ask, see if anyone's got any questions on any of them, because I think this is a key one just before we move on to holistic therapies, but I think people might have questions if I open it up at this point. Yeah, go on, Liz.
I was going to ask, what training would you give a menopause champion? What kind of things would you?
It would depend on the role. So for us, ours are going to facilitate our cafes. So in that, we're getting them to understand, one, how to facilitate a group, because we've taken on 3 already menopause cafes, because these, and I don't mean to minimize it in any way, but these are just women that set up the groups. But actually, there's been some safeguarding issues in them groups. And because they've not got the governance of a charity, there's nowhere for them to go. So they've asked if they can come under ours. And then, you know, I'm a safeguarding lead in our charity, so they can come to me and we'd explore it. So I think if anybody is looking at setting up peer support, then the key is good facilitators, because there is implications of that. Understanding the dynamics of a group is another one, isn't it? It's what menopause cafes aren't about, is giving what you want to try is this HRT, this patch, because they're not medical experts. So I think we have to be very, very careful on that, because what one patch might do for one woman absolutely doesn't guarantee it's going to do it for another. There's still so much research, isn't there, going out there, so no individual can help on that. And then just an understanding of what might come. In general, in menopause cafes, it is the more mental health element, as you can imagine. Anxious women, very, very low women, or the men that come, it's supporting them to support loved ones, because that tends to be why they're there. But does that answer the question okay?
Yep, that's very good, thank you.
I can't see anybody else on the screen at the moment.
Hi.
So if
Hi,
there is
Kate.
anybody, just shout. Yeah, go on, Malcolm.
Hi, Kate. It's Malcolm here in Scotland. Listen, thanks very much for a very informative presentation, Kate. Listen, I'm an older white male, and obviously it's a bit of a challenge for me, perhaps, to kind of explore that subject in the workplace. I've got lots of experience with young women teams and a lot of history in terms of office staff. But how would you help me to kind of open that subject up? How do you think I could open that subject up? You know,
I think we do a lot of work, and we piggyback on the back of awareness days. So, you know, as an example, we've just explored that's awareness days, but for you to take the lead on that, you know, that you've invested the research on it as well, and work with some of your other, you said you've got other team members as well, but perhaps, you know, lead on doing some more sessions in the workplace as well, because I think people would really love that, you know, a male has taken an interest in it and wants to deliver it, and also open it out. What do they want to see in the work? I'm not sure of your position. Are you able to influence what goes on in the workplace, or?
Well, it's a bit of a challenge just now. I'm doing some consultancy work, but in the past I've had, you know, lots of industry experience in a kind of mixed workplace, you know. So it's one of those things. Every day's a school day, and this is learning.
Yeah, I would open it out. I would ask that question.
Yeah.
I think as well, it's about, if you do hear somebody making that joke, you know, it's not joining in with that. It's just saying, well, actually, you know, I'm not going to laugh about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, it's a challenge. It's the world we live in. But yeah, thanks so much for the sharing.
Yeah, because I think that's been proven, hasn't it, without going into too much deep. But you know what come out from the Met Police was actually, if they were challenging some of the derogatory comments, it perhaps would have been nipped in the bud a lot sooner in some of the incidents that's happened. But I think just sometimes for males on women's subjects, it's putting your head there, isn't it, and just saying, actually, I'm going to attend it. Who's coming with me?
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
We did too with Barclays. We were like, oh my God, no one's going to come. And it was Barclays International. And it was aimed at men, so it's slightly different presentation. And we had 250 men come because it was only for men. You know, And it was really good feedback, because they said, actually, I know my wife's going through the menopause because she told me she is, but what she hasn't told me is what else is going on for her. And it was, you know, as we're looking at here as well.
Okay, well, listen, thanks so much for answering that question.
Thank you. Anybody else? Because as I say, I can only see 4 on my screen at the moment. No. Just double checking. Bernard, take it. Can you see everybody? So there's no.
Yeah, I can see everybody.
Yeah.
No
I'll just
hand.
carry on then. So there's lots of ways that we can support medically with different patches, and you know, with the right medication for a GP. The guidance at the moment, I believe, is to go to your pharmacy in the first instance, because I think they're trying. I would imagine they've had an influx since menopause has been so on the news, since, you know, Davina McCall and the menopause revolution. But there is lots of different ways, and we've worked for this. I did ask somebody that does aromatherapy. Some people like it, some people don't. But there's ways that you can support yourselves. Just, you know, simple massage using the right oils can help to do that, and support it. It doesn't take away everything, but sometimes it's just to lower the anxiety or lower the stress. And in very basic form, sometimes it's just so you can get a good night's sleep as well. So these are some of the natural remedies that are recommended for the menopause symptoms in particular. So HRT has massively been on the news since Davina McCall did hers. I always say it's certainly not for us to recommend, and there's lots of different personal opinions out there for people.
I was going to say, for as many people that love it, there's as many people that hate it.
Yeah. So I think I can't do this presentation without mentioning it. But it is very much down to the woman to have medical discussions with their own GPs, because everybody is different, and it'll depend on, you know, what's going on from them as well. Yeah, somebody's put here, everybody's different. Things I've learned, we all get different amounts. And I think that's, you know, I hate it when I've heard it, you wouldn't get me having that, and then there's another woman in the room that is. And this is again when you go back to how important facilitating a group is, that it's not to be offering opinions on subjects like this, because one, that woman is probably very likely not to return to that group if somebody else has got such a strong opinion on it. But it is everybody's, and that's opening it up into a group, but also stopping them kind of conversations in the workplace as well. Nobody's a medic, you know. A GP is the one that will work with that woman on their own hormone levels. Absolutely, I know it's life-changing for some, and for some it's just not helped and just had loads of side effects. So it's completely different, but I feel like we have to mention it here, because it'd be wrong to do so. Early menopause can be harder, definitely.
Absolutely. That can perhaps take away some choices even sooner, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So obviously we're based in Cheshire, and we can help support and set it up. Another great website is Menopause Matters. There is also Menopause Pledge that workplaces can sign up to. So it might be to look into that and see if it can encourage your workplace too, because then if they sign the pledge, they're signing up to having a policy in the workplace for them as well. We're just launching a Women in the Workplace pledge in line with this 10-year strategy that the government have put out, because ultimately that's what they want workplaces to do. So not just on menopause, but supporting infant loss far more in the workplace. As I've said at the start, it's found that women would probably tell their employer they're off with a cold rather than saying that they've suffered a miscarriage, because that culture is not there, and fear of repercussions that person, oh my God, that person might be trying for a baby. What does that mean for us as a workplace? So I will send you the link to that, because I found it fascinating, because what it shows is where workplaces need to be heading. It's split into different parts, but there's a big chapter of workplace wellbeing for women. And for me, that's saying to me where they're heading and what they want workplaces to be offering women on many different topics, really. I'm very skeptical on that one, because I think, you know, if it's a government initiative, it's come for a reason. And the reason probably is they've recognised that a lot more women are having time off workplaces when they don't actually need to be having time off, if the right support was put there in the first place as well. They've had to respond to menopause, haven't they? Because it's just absolutely rocketed with documentary after documentary, and lots of different initiatives that have had to come out through pressure of not being taken seriously as impacting people's lives as well. So I think the more the conversation goes, it's always better. I'm a strong believer that it's all about conversation starters. So going back to what Malcolm just said, if it's a conversation that you have at a team meeting, it started the conversation that will perhaps lead on to other people talking about it. Then you could perhaps lead on to having champions and carrying on from different things like that as well. Any more questions at all? Can see everybody again now, so.
Trudy's saying the balance app is good. Lisa's saying with relation to early menopause that because it isn't as expected, there's even less allowances.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and there's going to be, because I googled it because of the phrase is femtech. There's going to be a lot more technology apps come out to help women with their health. You know, a bit like fertility, they can test their fertility. They're developing an app for menopause as well, which I found was interesting. So that will help support people a little bit more as well.
Yeah. Lisa's talking about, you know, everybody having the different symptoms, and that list, it's so huge. You know, if somebody, perhaps if there's differences with body odor, how difficult is that if you're in a client-facing role?
Yeah.
But then somebody may not have that. Somebody may, for example, have the really itchy skin or the anxiety or the panic attacks. It's so broad, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we can't just take one of that. It gives you anxiety. Well, I've got a 2-hour presentation that I do on the impact of anxiety on people. That's got its own list. I know myself, my hair really falls out if I'm going through a stress. And you know, sometimes when I look at it, oh yeah, I know because of X, Y, and Z that's going on. But you know, anxiety in itself can cause lots of issues. Psoriasis, you know, it's amazing how our body can respond to different things that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Vicky's saying about memory loss.
Yeah.
And at times she's felt like she's had the onset of dementia. I mean,
and did you see that clip with Davina? It was an advert, and somebody said, I felt like I was having dementia, and she responds, I did too, and she got quite upset. The amount of women we're seeing, and I've had this recently where she said, well, maybe, because I said it's just my anxiety, well, we could try you on antidepressants. I said, I'm not depressed. I said, I'm a counsellor, I know I'm not depressed, I'm fine. But it was the quick win, you know, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. And it's fine. I'm certainly not against thingy, but she'd misunderstood what I was saying to her. And so many women are coming to us saying, I just know, but I'm now on antidepressants. But actually, when I've read more about the menopause, this is now what's going on.
They may not realise it's due to.
Yeah. I heard a conversation in our Menopause Cafe the other day about the perimenopause and how that just for one person's gone on forever, but really impacted her anxiety, you know, and her self-esteem and everything come into question for her, and then linking that in with some of the memory issues as well.
Kate, Liz has got a hand up.
Well, actually, Marissa's got a question. Do you want to come off mute, Marissa? You can ask. So obviously you can come off mute, Marissa, if you want, just ask.
Sorry, I was using Vicky's login, and that was my question about I'm suffering from memory loss and felt like I've got the onset of dementia. I wouldn't like anyone thinking that Vicky's got it, because she's looking at me smiling at the moment. So yeah, that was my question. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your reply.
Any other comments? Or but it is really good, like I say, as soon as you got it, women open up and say, this is, you know, this is what's going on for me, and perhaps a lot of people in the workplace just wouldn't know. And then you know, we don't want a big, oh my God, what, you know, what can we do? But it's just sometimes recognition, serious conversation, this is where I'm at today, and moving on with it. Any other questions or reflections? Or so I'll send out the strategy and I'll send out the policy, and then Liz can cascade that to everybody.
I was just typing, but I think it's easier to just say, and in way of sort of opening up conversations, I'm certainly pre-menopause or perimenopause. My periods have changed so significantly in the last 8 to 10 months, to the point where on the first day I can't leave my house.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm in a great workplace where I don't have to worry about anything like that, but I literally have to work at home.
Yeah.
And what's getting even worse is becoming irregular. So I don't even know what's going to happen, which is quite, you know.
So in the past, you could almost plan and think, I know that day not to organise things on that day, but now the irregularity.
Yeah, it's becoming quite challenging. Yeah, I do have to take a change of clothes with me in the car. I'm sorry, I know that's probably a little bit.
No, but I think that this is it, isn't it? It shouldn't be. And I was on with two CEO and deputy CEO about them buying our package, and male and female, and you could just tell they had a great relationship. And she said, how many times are we going to meeting and I'm saying to you, am I showing anything? And then he was like, oh, I know I have it every day. But you could tell it was a really nice conversation. The other thing that I did, I was in Story House in Chester the other day, and we were writing, it was for menopause awareness, and we were writing what we're going to do and things like that. And this woman come over and she says, oh, I hope you don't think I've been eavesdropping, but I've just heard everything you just said. And I was thinking, what the hell have I just said? And she said, and I just found it really refreshing how you just spoke about menopause, so normal, so factual, and I'm not used to that. And that was a wake-up call for me, because I'm in an all-women's workplace. So it made me think about, imagine I didn't work where I work and couldn't have the conversations that I have in work. So that took me to back that, you know, if I worked in different, perhaps I would be a bit more quieter about what I speak about, where really it shouldn't matter just because we're a women's organisation. We should be able to have the same conversation and talk about it. And I think it's more, we perhaps shy away to protect other people, but actually if it's a conversation, they would say, oh, you know, you're all right, don't worry, or do you want to go to the toilet, or, you know, things like that as well. It just makes it easier for everybody.
Sorry, Kate. Justine's just said, you've said it a few times, the best way of gaining people's understanding is to really encourage good conversations between everyone and be brave to tackle the realities and ask what support need. And also respect that people don't want to share sometimes too.
And I think that's where procedures come in, isn't it? You know, I don't, on this policy that we've written, I don't want everybody at every month feel that they've got to tell me where they are on their cycle. If it's an easy policy, they can just say, I'm having today off, or I'm having the work at home as per our policy. No, nothing else needs to be said, does it? So, okay, anything else? No.
There's nothing else in the chat, Kate.
No, just double check that one. It's been really good to have a very mix of I think it's quite equal, isn't it? There's a few people haven't got the camera on, but it looks like it's quite a diverse group that's come on as well. Okay.
All right, thank you. I don't think we've got any more questions. So thank you very much, Kate and Jude. Very interactive, very informative discussion as well. So thank you very much for spending the time today with Staffordshire branch. Thank you everyone for joining today. And again, just please follow on LinkedIn, and then we will share the slides. As we said, the recordings will be available on IOSH YouTube channel. So thank you everyone, and we will see you soon. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much, Bernard.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, Jude, are you okay to stop 2 minutes after the call from members? Yeah. Thank you. Oh, I think that's everyone. You're so quick
Yeah.
removing people, Liz. I couldn't remove one, and you remove about 10. Right.
Very quick. I've got my glass of wine. I'm still celebrating. So I've got another glass of wine. So as has Sharon.
Yeah, I know. Won't be long. What we usually do, just stay 2 minutes after the call, so just to thank you for presenting and for a great discussion and for joining us today. So great. And again, thank you, Kate. Thank you, Jude, and thank you, committee members as well for the support. And then I won't keep you any longer.
Oh, thank you. Shall I send the slides as well, Liz? And I'll probably put my email on in case there was any questions as well, because they take it they're all from different organisations, are they?
Yeah, if you send me the slides, that'd be great. What I'll do is I'll share them on the Staffordshire LinkedIn page. That strategy as well, if you can share that, I'll put that in sort of one post tomorrow morning. And then what I was going to say, would you share your policy? Is it, you know, so
yeah. I mean, I've looked high and low for it. I've wanted it for ages, and it was a template in Australia. So I think it isn't if your company adapts it, the lead in the way really. It's very simple. Nothing, and then we're just putting some procedures in it, but it doesn't need to be an overkill. It is what it is. Women need time off at certain times of the month, basically.
Yeah. Oh, great.
It's a formal thing, doesn't it? So I'll get that sent over as well.
Great. We'll definitely share anyway. So it's great resources as well. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Let's celebrate. Yeah. See you later.
Thanks, Jude.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.